Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and this is Billboard Breakdown. So you know how I said last week that I knew something awesome was coming up this week? Well, here's the funny thing. When you start reading press releases about certain artists getting streaming records off of critically acclaimed releases, you suddenly realize that Billboard includes streaming information in its calculations. And that means songs that would never otherwise land on the Hot 100 might suddenly notch hits. And sure, they might not stick around for long, we saw that with the Drake album, but if they somehow land enough impressions or make enough of an impact with the audience, well, in any case, by now, anybody who follows the music industry should know exactly what I'm talking about. Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly, and by some miracle, 6 songs from it landed on the Hot 100. And it seems like in response, the Hot 100 went into a massive panic in response to so much great music injected onto it. And all sorts of semi-explicable insanity happened this week. Except, of course, in the top 10, where it seemed to be business as usual with very few changes. Uptown Funk by Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars still holds on to the number 1 slot, even despite losing airplay and lower sales. Right now, it's just coasting on its lead, the fact that nothing's quite close enough to unseat it. I mean, sure, Sugar by Maroon 5 is trying with steady gains across the board, but it's not dominant in any format, which is keeping it out of that top slot. It's enough to keep Ed Sheeran's Thinking Out Loud at number 3, though, which, like Uptown Funk, it's holding on to its slot pretty much thanks to inertia, despite some really dropping airplay. Beneath it is Love Me Like You Do by Ellie Goulding, which had good sales and still sizable airplay, but it's falling back a little bit in YouTube and in streaming, and you've gotta wonder where that peak is eventually gonna come. And on that note, 4 or 5 Seconds by Rihanna, Kanye West, and Paul McCartney seems to have finally peaked in airplay and is fading on YouTube and streaming, even despite pretty respectable sales keeping it where it is. It's gonna be interesting to see if and when it starts really falling. What's not falling is Earned It by The Weeknd, which took in some massive airplay gains to counteract slipping streams and pretty much non-existent YouTube presence. I don't know why the radio is suddenly now picked up to jump on a song tied to a movie that dropped over a month ago and wasn't any good to begin with, but okay, fine, whatever. What hasn't been embraced nearly as much, and this is disappointing, is Style by Taylor Swift, with paltry streams and sales and stalling airplay games. At least it had a good week on YouTube, but I'm getting the feeling right now it's just too little too late. And I expect it to be clips pretty soon. And I can't believe I'm saying this, by Trap Queen by Fetty Wap. The rapper has now been picked up by Kanye West because, of course he has. The song jumped to number 8 thanks to monstrous streaming and not terrible airplay and sales. Yeah, I'm as surprised this could be as hit as anyone, believe me. Next up, we've got Time of Our Lives by Pitbull and Neo, which is really relying on sales and still pretty solid airplay presence for its slot, but I don't see it lasting much longer. And that means it could be replaced by the lone new arrival to the Hot 100 at number 10, GDFR by Flo Rida, Sage the Gemini, and Lucas. Okay, seriously, what the hell, America? I get why the song is here. Shockingly good sales, good streaming and airplay gains, but the song is a third-rate talk dirty wannabe that swaps out Jason Derulo for Flo Rida. I honestly can't tell who loses more here outside of the public. And 2 Chainz for Sage the Gemini. In the latter case, that's not an upgrade. But you know what, forget that, enough of that, I've already talked about that song. Let's talk about our losers and dropouts, the biggest of which being in the latter being Ghost by Ella Henderson, which strangely did not really catch fire on mainstream radio. Seriously, I was betting on this being a surefire hit, and it just didn't really stick around. Damn shame, really, I like that song. But in terms of losers, we had an absolutely crazy week with all sorts of shuffling. Now some of it was expected. Make Me Wanna by Thomas Rhett dropping to 89, I Really Like You by Carly Rae Jepsen going down to 87, and You're So Beautiful by the Empire Cast falling to 88. They aren't exactly surprising, they've all been on a downward slide. And songs like The Hanging Tree by Jennifer Lawrence dropping to 100, Lonely Tonight by Blake Shelton and Ashley Monroe slipping down to 80, Just Getting Started by Jason Aldean stumbling to number 70, and Mean to Me by Brett Eldridge are near the end of their chart lifespans, and there is mostly a sign for the last 3 that country radio is looking to rotate in new tracks. Now granted, the country that they're trying to bring in isn't exactly working so well either, as Little Red Wagon by Miranda Lambert loses short-term video gains to fall to 72. Outside of that, Lay Me Down by Sam Smith stabilizes and falls out of the top 10 to number 18, which is to be expected. It wasn't going to sustain that leak to where it was. And She Knows by Neo and Juicy J is nearing the end of its chart run at number 36, which I'm just amazed that such a pale imitation of I Don't Mind by Usher and Juicy J lasted as long as it did. Now, the one drop that did surprise me and disappointed me a bit was I Bet by Sierra, slipping to number 60. You'd think that a damn good acoustic ballad in that vein would hold on to a little bit more steam, but I reckon it'll hold on a little bit longer. I bet it will go up a little more. And finally, we've got Believe by Mumford & Sons dropping to 67. Most because it's a complete departure in sound and, in my opinion, a botched one at that. Not much to say about this one that I already didn't say last week. Most because even though I covered it a week ago, its melody left zero impact in my brain. Seriously, I can barely remember the song. It left that little of an impact. Now, I can't exactly say the same thing about most of the gains this week, though, where we've got a significantly shorter list, most of which I don't have a problem with. Now, I mean, sure, Bills by Lunch Money Lewis still hasn't become the massive hit that it is destined to be yet, but See You Again by Wiz Khalifa featuring Charlie Puth going to 82, and Honey I'm Good by Andy Grammer leaping up to 56, they prompt no complaints from me. Yeah, sure, the latter is corny as hell, but it's the sort of corniness that I can easily enjoy so long as I don't watch the painfully saccharine video. Beyond that, Budapest by George Ezra gets a little boost to 62, and Jason Derulo's Want to Want Me shoots up to 27 off the back of its video. Wanna know what other song got a lot of traction off its video and nothing else? Throw Some Mo by Ray Shrimmer featuring Young Thug and Nicki Minaj only on the hook because we wouldn't want actual talent and charisma to enter the song, would we? This track went at 51, it's just painful, and I'm forced to assume this track gaining any sort of traction anywhere is only based upon, well, balancing for Kendrick's sheer unbridled awesomeness. Please, folks, don't let this become a hit like No Type or No Flex Zone. The less Ray Shrimmer I have to hear this year, the better. And speaking about overcompensating for Kendrick on that note, let's talk about our returning entries. Fun fact about me, at the end of every year, I make a habit of cleaning out the majority of music that's mediocre, bland, or outright bad off of my overloaded iPod. And apparently in that process, well over half of Florida Georgia Line's album Anything Goes, that was sadly not a tribute to the musical, was pitched out the window. This was one of the songs that got pitched, mostly because it was one of the same formless, sterile, overproduced by Joey Moy bro country songs that the duo specializes in. Now, I can normally tolerate more of Florida Georgia Line than most, because they're at least genuine in their bro persona. But here, they push my tolerance to the limit thanks to sloppy appropriation of nearly every single cheap rhyme for fire, and the fact that they're trying to convince a girl not to go back to what they define as a safe guy, because she's scared of the hell that she raises with our dynamic duo here, which raises so many uncomfortable questions, the majority of which raising them is pointless because you can bet they and their songwriters didn't think that hard about this song beyond just making another pickup track. As it is, it's pretty forgettable and I'm not gonna think much more about it either. Next.
Dear future husband, here's a few things you need to know if you wanna be my one and only all my life.
Okay, seriously, did we need the whitest songs possible to come back to compensate for Kendrick? Because this is just embarrassing. In this case, it's just another song riding off the back of its video to the charts, and it's by far the worst song from Meghan Trainor's debut album. Mostly because the relationship that she describes is damn close to sociopathic. All that retro doo-wop only serves to disguise the fact that Meghan's describing a relationship where she's always supposed to be considered right, her in-laws are a bigger priority than yours, you're supposed to tolerate her even when she's crazy, her words, not mine, which sends all sorts of mixed messages, and maybe when it's all done, you might get kisses. Now, okay, I get the idea of this song. Meghan's trying to present a very certain, strong, confident woman archetype and not be a doormat. I would agree with that, appropriating the retro doo-wop style to emphasize the subversion. But the problem is in the execution going way too far and not remotely being a relationship of equals. And keep in mind, this is a message to a future husband. I have to ask, who would sign up for this? Either way, the song didn't last long on the charts before, and I can bet it won't exactly last long this time either. And that's all our returning entries. Now on to the good stuff, starting with number 99, Institutionalized by Kendrick Lamar featuring Bilal, Anna Wise, and Snoop Dogg.
Don't you swallow it, biting my style. Your salmonella poison positive.
These start off our list of songs from Kendrick Lamar with one of the smoother, chiller cuts from the album, taking a bubbly and glossy G-funk sound, pairing it with the rougher hooks and the interludes from Bilal and Anna Wise, with Snoop Dogg almost as a glorified cameo and doing a surprisingly good job. The song that Kendrick crafts, though, the story that he's telling is a lot darker, telling a story about how those friends that Kendrick tried to introduce to his level of success and fame, they don't appreciate it in the same way, and begin plotting ways to hustle out rappers flashing money. And the morality of the situation really is complicated. Yeah, those guys got to the top by luck or selling out, but that doesn't mean they deserve to be jacked or robbed, and yet Kendrick can't entirely blame his friends either. Sure, they didn't hustle and probably don't appreciate that same level of success in the same way that Kendrick does. They didn't put in the work, but they're also coming from a system where they have to do what they can to survive. This is a prime opportunity. And what makes those bling rappers more deserving of the wealth than them? Complicated questions, and Kendrick doesn't have any easy answers for it, which makes for a damn great song along the way. Although, if I'm being completely honest, not one of my favorites off the album. You want one of those? Number 94, These Walls by Kendrick Lamar featuring Bilal, Anna Wise, and Thundercat. Now this is more like one of the more abstract and complex songs on the album that of course opens with the sounds of explicit sex before dropping into a restrained G-funk group courtesy of Thundercat's bass work with some great atmospherics and an awesome jazzy keyboard breakdown for a bridge. But what are those walls that Kendrick seems to be talking about on this song? Well, initially it seems like he's talking about vaginal walls, emphasizing the sex here, and the parallel runs deeper as the walls of Kendrick's conscience shudder at the abuse of his power, petty revenge that he can simply get because, well, he's a famous rapper. The abuse of power that's reflected in the poems bookending the song. It's one of the moments setting off the internal crises that rack the rest of the album. Kendrick using established walls both of prison and of flesh to get what he wants, not just because he knows that it's wrong, but also fills his verses with references to demolition of those who would exploit the walls, just like him. With the third verse, one of the smoothest songs on the album effortlessly becomes incredibly haunting. Easily one of the best of the album and one of my favorites. Number 91, Wesley's Theory by Kendrick Lamar featuring George Clinton and Thundercat. Track on To Pimp a Butterfly, and it says a lot about the quality of this album that it's probably not one of my favorites on this record, because this track is great nonetheless, opening with a great sample before dropping in George Clinton, Flying Lotus, and Thundercat bringing some sweet bubble and thunk. This song has a phenomenally cool groove that manages to be smooth and a little bit creepy at the exact same time, kind of perfect for the subject matter too. A song that begins with Kendrick playing the archetypal rapper reveling in his success. After all, he's the star, as the sample says, before the second verse speaks from the perspective of the government and the system that feeds into the ego and consumerism of that rapper, but doesn't give any real respect to him, or the education to sustain any of that wealth before dropping down the iron fist of the IRS. As a quick sample from Dr. Dre emphasizes, the wealth can be seductive, but keeping it is far more difficult than actually getting it. Number 84, Fairly Local by 21 Pilots. Now we get our lone new entry on the list that's not from Kendrick Lamar, and it's from the indie pop group to land on the Hot 100. This is not one that I expected. I originally covered 21 Pilots way back in 2013 with their major label debut album Vessel. That was pretty damn great, but also proved to be a marketing team's nightmare given their total lack of guitars, eclectic blend of instrumentation, and hip-hop inspired cadence for their lyrics. But extensive touring and groundswell finally seems to have given the band enough buzz to land on the Hot 100 for the first time. And wow, the duo took a left turn towards darkness. The synths have gotten heavier and glitchier, almost symphonic with the strings over the chorus. The rap cadence and the flow is decidedly modern and a lot better, and the icy production with thick basses is a surprisingly solid fit for Tyler Joseph's more mature and refined delivery. The sound is still recognizably 21 Pilots, especially when it comes to the smart and well-framed lyrics about accepting emotion as one evolves and matures. In other words, looks like 21 Pilots picked up some maturity with their shift in style. So, you know what? Color me intrigued about that next album. I'll take this song. Number 83, Alright by Kendrick Lamar.
Nigga, we gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Do you hear me? Do you feel me? We gon' be alright.
To be honest, honest here. Of the Kendrick songs that I really do like on this album, alright, not one of my huge favorites. I mean, Pharrell's hook is alright against the horn snippets, choppy vocal samples and the instrumentals, I gotta be honest, a little bit awkward. It's really Kendrick's bars that redeem this track, and it's our first introduction to Lucy, the devil metaphor that runs through the record and tries to tempt Kendrick towards a life of just ignorant bliss and sex, money, cash, and hoes. The sad fact is that Kendrick's been this close to accepting it. On previous songs, he's exposed his vices and has him reaching for painkillers in order to really blunt that guilt. Makes a slightly off-kilter atmosphere of the song make a lot of sense. Sure, it'll be alright, but what does that really mean for Kendrick? Because he knows on some level it's a temptation he doesn't dare accept because of what it leads to. There's a fair bit to this track that I really do enjoy, don't get me wrong, but when it's followed on the album by the much stronger For Sale interlude, it just underwhelms me a little bit. Still, damn good song though. Number 66, The Blacker the Berry by Kendrick Lamar. Although I said that streaming can lead to some songs charting that never would in any other circumstance, yeah, this is one of them. The sort of incendiary political song that a sanitized radio station could never play for fear of losing their advertisers. Kendrick's venomous growls, the plethora of creepy samples, the aggressively sharp drums in the boom bap style, the guitar wheedling deep in the background, and that's not even touching on the chorus, and the dancehall segments courtesy of Assassin with a lot of fiery passion. It's wild, it's dark, it's provocative in a way that Kanye wished Black Skinhead could be. That's before we get to the subject matter. Let's make this clear. Kendrick wants the listener to be uncomfortable whenever they be black or white by appropriating derogatory racial slurs to lacerate both himself and the racists who hide quivering behind their very deep insecurities. It's part Black Power anthem, the sort that gives the KKK nightmares that they deserve. But Kendrick also speaks about black on black crime and the hypocrisy that comes from those who participate in gang wars and gangbangs and yet want to raise holy hail at the murder of Trayvon Martin. And what Kendrick knows is that the internal strife is perpetuated by a broken system designed to perpetuate self-hatred and to keep the black community fighting amongst each other instead of against the system. It's not so much removing blame from them as such as spreading around to all those who really deserve it. And the fact that Kendrick places himself as the main character of the entire story and himself in the crosshairs as a punishingly visceral element to the framing that sends a chill down my spine every single time. Easily the best song on To Pimp a Butterfly and one of the best songs that will likely be released this year. It's amazing this song charted at all, but sadly, I doubt it will last. When it's part of me, I really hope it does. And finally, number 61, King Kunta by Kendrick Lamar.
Everybody wanna cut the legs off. King Kunta, black man taking no loss. Oh, yeah.
There's gonna be a song from Kendrick's new album that could become a smash hit off of To Pimp a Butterfly. My bet it's this one. The fact they're filming a video proves this is gonna be his next single for the radio. The funny thing is that it's probably the most simple song on the album in terms of its concept. Kendrick's just running the game against a system that would see him crippled and fighting against the temptations that consume many on his level, be they drugs, sex, or pure unfiltered power, corrupting even icons and legends. Richard Pryor, Bill Clinton, and Michael Jackson are all referenced in the song. And the fact that he does stand himself against those temptations means he's got enemies coming for his throat, but many of which are easily handicapped by their own insecurities and failures. They're killing themselves. Oh, and all that's paired with a funky as hell bass line, bubbling and creaking percussion for texture, and a fantastically simple guitar melody to anchor the entire song. Move over, Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars. Kendrick's got a track that could give Uptown Funk a run for its money. And of course it ends with a scratchy, noisy guitar solo, because apparently the song wasn't awesome enough yet. Easily one of my favorites on To Pimp a Butterfly. God, I love this song. So yeah, the majority of this week kicked all amounts of ass. But that's what you get when you get multiple songs from one of the best albums of the year thus far hitting the charts. And it's honestly hard to pick just two to represent the best from the album. Now, from the worst this week, it's easy. Dear Future Husband by Meghan Trainor easily runs away with worst of the week, with Sippin' on Fire by Florida Georgia Line, Sippin' that dishonorable mention, more for being bland than anything else. But for best, oh hell, who the hell am I kidding? Honorable mention goes to the song that I hope becomes a massive hit with King Kunta, and the best of the week goes to the song that's practically on a different plane of existence when it comes to its quality, and that's Blacker the Berry. Kendrick easily takes both the slots this week. In an adjust universe, every new arrival to the charts would be as good as the ones we got this week. Let's see if we can get a streak going and get more songs from Kendrick on the charts, because that would make things awesome. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.